everyone. Welcome to week 3 of the GardenStateHSWrestling.com podcast. Near fall, back points, call it what you like. I'm your host, Donald J. Brower. Exciting week so far. Second week of the season in the books. A little strange, obviously, because of how the holiday broke. There wasn't a lot of action. Also, some teams dealing with some COVID issues and stuff like that. But we had a great week so far, and now we're in 2022. So happy New Year. Happy 2022. Before we get into the new year, we got to deal with the old stuff, and that's a sponsor. Dan Warnerkoff, Champion Athletes, the man who makes this possible. Champion Athletes, if you want to get better, you need to train the proper way. And yes, that requires technique and going and doing stuff. But the biggest piece, and I think the most forgotten piece, is your body, the fuel for that body, to make sure that's ready to go. Dan Warnerkoff will work with you and help you cut the weight, be healthy, and get into shape for what you need. He helps athletes, non-athletes, in New Jersey, out of New Jersey. If you're wrestling, basketball, hockey, football, any other sport, Dan Warnerkoff's the man. ChampionAthletes.com. Check him out. He will help you get better. Now, speaking of get better, as we said, there's a few teams that we're dealing with some COVID issues, but we're past the holiday tournaments. We know we had a couple. For you guys who tuned into the live stream of the goals last week that we did, thank you so much. We thoroughly enjoyed it. But now it's the fun part. It's the individual season starting. There will still be a few more tournaments, but the one thing, the individual start. Now, this is where the teams show how good they are on the mat against other teams. You'll still have some quads. You'll still have some duels. You'll have stuff like that, some tries, but this is where the divisions match up. And when I tell you we're starting off with a bang this week, there's some great matchups within the Northwest Jersey Athletic Conference, as well as Hunterdon and Warren Sussex. So we'll talk a little bit about those guys a little bit. Couple matches, I'm going to highlight here. Tuesday, depending on when you see this, you're either seeing it be tomorrow or next day, who knows. But Tuesday, great matchup in the Northwest Jersey Athletic Conference in the American Division. Pope John traveling in Del Barton. That was supposed to happen a little earlier, according to the schedule. Things got shuffled around. That's going to be a good matchup. I like Del Barton. I think they got a really good squad, but we'll see how Pope John matches up. The very next day, Pope John heads over to Mendham. That's going to be a really good matchup because, like I said, Pope John is tough with Del Barton, but I think they match up really well with Mendham. And I think Mendham wants to show that their win last week against Montville, which some people considered an upset, they wanted to show that they're for real. So we'll see how that works. And another match in that division, Mount Olive, taking that long trek to West Morris. They could probably run to it, but that'll be a good one to check out. Lots of matchups in the national division that'll come down to deciding who winds up winning. You got Randolph at Morris Hills, Morris Knolls at Morristown, and Roxbury at Sparta. You'll hear me talk a little bit about Roxbury, Morris Knolls, and Morris Hills later, but that'll be one of these matchups. These are what we call classic trap matches. Other teams are good, but Roxbury, Morris Knolls, and Morris Hills should win, but we'll see who they have available. And then one that I think could be really big in the Liberty Division race that they're getting out of the way early is Boonton versus Hanover Park. Hanover Park lost a tough one to Kittatinny a couple days ago. Boonton has their 3 really good stars in Fungaro, Smith, and Smith. We'll see how they match up. And is this the changing of the guard in the Liberty Division, or does Hanover Park hold on? I think it might be at that one. So we'll see how that works out. That's probably most likely, spoiler, probably going to be my blog this Wednesday. So we'll check that out. We had the Thursday. You have Roxbury at Hanover Park, another good matchup. See where Roxbury kind of falls in. As I said when we were talking about the rankings, which we'll get to in a little bit, some of those teams mix in, and you kind of don't know where they match up. So Boonton, Hanover Park getting Boonton and Roxbury, it'll kind of help me see where they fall after that tough loss to Kittatinny. And then Friday, you head to the Skylands Division, a little out of area stuff. 2 really big matchups that I was shocked I'm going to see before the Hunterdon and Warren Sussex tournament. You got Hunterdon Central traveling out to Delaware Valley. That rivalry right there is great. And then you got Coach Harunka taking his team up Route 31, the Warren Hills, who they had an amazing match. We talked with the goals, but they had an amazing match against Mount Olive the other day that we'll talk a little bit about. But those are 2 powerhouse matchups on Friday. So, I was a little shocked that they scheduled them right before the Hunterdon Warren Sussex tournament. But as we just said, the Hunterdon Warren Sussex tournament out in Peterborough on January 8th, the best of the best, the Hunterdon Warren and Sussex. And, we're going to see how everything goes headed into that. But I mean, that's a big, big matchup there. And if you don't want to travel out to Peterborough and you want to look for a good quad with some top teams, head over to Mount Olive. They're hosting Paramus, Passaic Tech, and Southern. So, I mean, that's two really good matchups if you want to go check some wrestling on Saturday. But the match everybody's going to want to see, my Stefanelli Financial Money Match of the Week, is on Thursday, when that same Mount Olive team takes a trip up the highway, up 206, all the way up in New Jersey to High Point. And they take the trip. And that matchup, wow. You want to talk about a matchup that people want to see. I mean, I might take a trip up to High Point. I live nowhere near it. That's a matchup between number 2 and 3 in my rankings. I mean, it's two squads, Saldano and the other guys they have at High Point versus the young crew that Mount Olive has. And I mean, it's going to be ridiculous, that match. So that's a match people want to check out. That's my Stefanelli Financial Money Match of the Week. But a match we had last week that I want to talk a little bit about was the Mount Olive traveling. Seems to be a lot of Mount Olive today, maybe because there's one of the best teams. But Mount Olive traveling out to Warren Hills, and a matchup of, not arguably, but I would say probably the favorites of Group 4 and Group 3 facing each other one-on-one. And talking to some people there, that match was electric. And they had one really good wrestler, Alpha Kovic, so did Mount Olive, so it evened out. Mount Olive walks away with a 33-27 win, which I know, watching the live stream by some of the parents up there, was epic. That gym was filled. And as a former alumni, I know all about Warren Hills packing the gym. So that's a great matchup there. And Mount Olive is just on a roll. And they got a brutal week, but I think it's going to be good for them to see how they do. Now, before we get into our question of the week, I want to say congratulations to, we talked about the Hunterdon Warren Sussex. The girls' Hunterdon Warren Sussex tournament was earlier today. Congratulations to High Point for walking away with the overall team title. Multiple winners. I know Sophie Lombardo was their outstanding wrestler of the tournament, and they had a solid day. Multiple winners. It was Sophie. I know there was two or three winners for them. I know and then like I said, they really enjoyed up there. Outstanding wrestler was Sophia Lombardo. I'm sorry I messed up your name, but they had a really good run up there. And I know Newton had a good showing, and it just shows how I think a lot of people were. I know I was personally disappointed with how little the girls got last year because of everything that was happening on, and there was no roadmap really for how to run the tournament, and people were scared. And the girls honestly have been barely getting any matches as it is. I know it's a growing sport, but for them to get out there and have this tournament, and just for the the teams that have such success, it's only got to not only boost their confidence, but also look forward to the future of the sport. As a lot of young girls, I'm sure, are excited about it, having it being back, so they're going with that. Now, my question of the week. Somebody asked me, and I got to get his name right here. Jason from Morristown. Jason, thank you. I sent it to me on Twitter. Said you're a big fan. Thank you. I don't do it for the fans. I do it for the people. No, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Anybody who takes the time to send us questions and stuff like that, we really appreciate it. He asked me, when deciding my rankings, how do I do it? And considering I'm about to talk about my rankings, I think it's a good idea to bring it up. Realistically, most of my rankings are by hype and feel. Now, when I do, for example, and look at my top number one team, you obviously know there's a consensus with most teams. You understand who's going to go where. So realistically, the rankings for the top 3, maybe 4 are pretty easy, because if somebody's nationally ranked, that obviously vaults them to the top, et cetera, et cetera. If they have multiple state champions, or there's a lot of people talking, or if I happen to talk to a couple coaches and they say, oh, how's so-and-so looking? You understand that maybe they're a little bit better, and you kind of look at a little in depth. So that's how you get your top 4. Then kind of 5 on is teams who have consistent track records, or teams you just have a gut feeling about. The one good thing I have with mine is because I got to go out and do the videos again this year, I actually got to see the teams practice. So you could kind of see the intensity, you kind of pick the brains of some of the coaches, you kind of get an idea of where you think they'll fall. And then, listen, nobody's perfect. If everybody was perfect with the rankings, not to use an analogy from another sport, but people always talk about the NFL draft. If scouting was a perfect art, there'd be no busts. Sometimes I get egg on my face. Like, I'll talk about it in a minute with the rankings and see, because there's always that decision on where you want to move people, and you never want to overreact, because I know there's a couple teams, the last few years especially, might run off to a great winning record, but they're beating teams that, aren't good. Like, no, to be honest. So you can see a team there, and people have asked me, well, why is this team that's 7-5 ahead of this team that's 9-1? Well, the 7-5 team's wrestling top division teams, and the 9-1 team's wrestling teams that don't have full rosters. I mean, that's, to be blunt, I reward how well you do. That's just kind of how it is. I mean, if you're loading up against a team that's out there and you're winning 35-33 or 29-27 against a top-notch team, but then there's other teams winning, 71-6, you kind of understand there are lots of forfeits. So that's how I kind of get my rankings, kind of more of a gut feeling and then proven results, if that makes sense. But thank you so much for the question. Talking about the rankings, let's head into the rankings. This week's rankings. So I know I usually have my next in, but there's a team that I kind of get a good feeling about. So I'm going to do two best in, and or next, excuse me. So my first one, so I guess you would say 11B is Morris Knolls. 4-1, only lost to Roxbury. They were first in the Parsippany tournament. They've had a great preseason so far with a new head coach. The only loss they had was to Roxbury, who's actually my 11A team. Roxbury's 1-0, had some issues with some close contacts, had to shut down for a little bit, is ready to ramp up, just precaution. They're 1-0, so they're my 11A. Butler sitting there at 3-0. Butler looking great. I mean, they're in a different division, but they're solid. They're my number 9 team. My number 10 team. Number 9, excuse me, is Morris Hills, 3-1. They closed out the year with a try at home, beat North Warren, lost to Kittatinny. They were 3rd at the Cougar Classic. So Morris Hills going great. Number 8, Hanover Park. Now this is where it gets tricky for me with some of these rankings. Hanover Park's solid, but they're missing some kids, and they're low. And one of the things you hear from people is, well, they don't have their full lineup. Well, that's no offense. Daniel Jones isn't playing for the Giants, and people get hurt, so I understand that. But it's going to be results based. So I got Hanover Park number 8, 3-1. They had a loss to Kittatinny. They won the Lenape Valley tournament last week, so they're sitting there at number 8. This is where we get to the strange part with me for my rankings. Kittatinny, they're 7-0. They beat North Warren. They beat Morris Hills. They were second at their tournament in the Cougar Classic before the holiday. I don't get a feel for them because I look at them and there's nobody that beats you over the head and says, yes, they have Stephen Dolan who finished 8th last year, but they don't have that monstrous team of Murderers Row. But I think they have enough quality talent that they're solid. It's almost like one of those teams where there's no all-stars. Almost for a lot of people who might know baseball or going back, they're almost like the Athletics of the early 2000s. They're not anybody who you're like, oh my God, but they're good and they're solid. And I don't have a true feel for them. And some of their wins were against lesser teams, but they're sitting there at 7-0. They won the West Milford Duels. They're sitting there at 7-0. I'm kind of debating possibly moving them up. And that might be the team that I get a little egg on my face when we were just talking about by the end of the year. Number 6, Montville. They're 0-1. They lost to men. Well, why are they ahead of Kittatinny? I'll tell you why. Just for right now, they're 4th in the Sam Cali tournament. I mean, right there, prestigious tournament with Alan Kurzer winning the title at 132. So right now, they're right there. And Montville, I didn't want to punish him too bad for the Mendham loss. It came down to the last match. Their heavyweight was leading. It could have been anything, but Montville is number 6. Mendham, number 5. 2-0, 5th in the Cougar Classic. Like I said, they upset, for depending on who you ask, Montville. I didn't think they should jump too high. They were right there in that range, but they got to go ahead of Montville. That's just how it works. We had the Pope John. Haven't wrestled any single dual meets yet. They were 15th in the Sam Cali. They're primed up, like we said, to wrestle some of their matches this week. Del Barton, I think they got Mendham West Morris as well. So, they'll get ready to roll. High Point, 1-0 so far this year, 14th in the Sam Cali. Like I said, that matchup against Mount Olive is huge, and it'll be nice to see. And I think that's going to be the big match, because right now, unless something drastic happens and they don't beat Mount Olive, I don't see how they move up any higher in the rankings. If they lose to Mount Olive will have the lock on number 2, unless, a Pope John or Mendham winds up beating Mount Olive. So High Point's got the best chance of doing it if they match up well. That's going to come down to the coin flip. I know that's the most cliche thing you could say in wrestling, but honestly, when you match those guys up, that's where it's going to be interesting to see. And trust me, I'm sure that's going to be live streamed by somebody in the school, or maybe I'll go up there with a camera. I don't know, but that'll be the one to kind of keep an eye on. We've already talked about them a bunch. This almost becomes the Mount Olive show this week. Number 2, Mount Olive, 2-0. They beat Warren Hills 33-27. Like I said, they were first at the Brick Memorial Tournament, which, I'll give people credit. A lot of people go, well, so-and-so won this tournament, so-and-so won that tournament. Mount Olive and High Point don't enter, cakewalk tournaments. They enter some tough tournaments. Southern Classic, Brick Memorial. The tournaments they enter is ridiculous. So Mount Olive's number 2, and number 1, Del Barton. Haven't wrestled a single match yet. They placed 10th at the Cannonsburg tournament out in the Powerade out in Cannonsburg, PA. They dealing with some stuff with some of the kids, a little injuries, but nothing crazy. But they should be solid. I think they'll, come out of the gate running and be ready to go here. Get the Pope John on Tuesday. So we'll see how that works, and get that set up. But those are my rankings of the week. And nothing really changed. But like I told you, except for those first 3 to 4, everything else is kind of a crapshoot. Like I said, we had Hanover Park in that range. They went down. Mendham went above Montville. Morris Hills is sitting there, and it is what it is. But very good week for what we've seen, because now we're out of the team tournament aspect for the most part. We're heading to the duel, so that'll be the fun part. Now, I know it's hard. Everybody's been asking me who to pick. I've asked multiple people for who I want to be my James Irradi Wrestler of the Week for the first week, and there were plenty of choices from some of the matches. And you look at Josh Herman for his pin in the Mendham match. That was an opportunity. You look at Aaron Kurzer winning the Sam Cali. That was a big opportunity. And another winner from the Sam Cali. You look at Brian Saldano. That's a big win for him. He could have been it. You look at Joe Fungaro. He was right there. He was on my, because that was a big win for him. But I'll tell you who I'm giving it to this week. I mentioned Fungaro. I got to give it to his teammate, Jason Smith. He wins the title at the Sam Cali, wins his 100th. And that's big ups right there. So congratulations, Jason Smith. You're my James Irradi Wrestler of the Week for week 1. And your dad knows, so we can't say anything else. I'll be posting a little something about that here today or tomorrow, up on the site. But that's what we're going to do with the Wrestler of the Week as well. I'm going to basically announce it on the show, and I'll post something that next day. So congratulations, Jason Smith. I know you've done in the past, win your 100th. Congratulations on that huge win and that belt. Bring that belt around. That's how you show people. You show the belt in their face. I know from pro wrestling. Here's my belt. But just kidding. Don't do that. I don't want your dad having to yell at me. But I'm going to wrap it up, with like I said, for the week. There's some people, like I said, who I might have to be getting the shirts with DFWB, and that's Don't Fuck with Brower. People, it's kind of changed this week, so we're going to see how everything goes in the future. Hopefully everything works out well and for the best, but you know, I'm not going to pull that new year, new me bullshit, because it never happens. So 2021, goodbye. 2022, I'm still going to be the same guy who tells you people what I think, what I want, you know, my predictions, this and that. I'm still going to be the outspoken asshole I've always been. So for Jared, the podcasting legend, I'm Donald J. Brower. We'll see you next week.